This presentation is about artificial intelligence and more specifically the use of ChatGPT within the framework of the legal profession. Disclaimer, this presentation is for educational and discussion purposes only. This is not legal advice, nor does it create an attorney-client relationship. This is not an endorsement of any product or service. I hate long biographies. I'll just let you know, my name is Richard Winblad. I'm an attorney admitted to the Oklahoma Bar since October 1992. I'm licensed in the state of Oklahoma and admitted to practice before the Western, Eastern, and Northern districts of Oklahoma, as well as the 10th Circuit. Albert Einstein was attributed with the statement, "Artificial intelligence is no match for natural stupidity." What exactly is artificial intelligence? Well, simply put, artificial intelligence refers to the simulation of human intelligence in machines that are programmed to perform tasks that typically require human intelligence. It encompasses various subfields and approaches including machine learning, natural language processing, computer vision, robotics, expert systems, and more. Machine learning in particular is a prominent branch of AI that focuses on enabling machines to learn from data and improve performance without being specifically programmed. AI systems can analyze a vast amount of data, recognize patterns, make predictions, solve complex problems, understand and generate human language, and even interact with humans through natural language interfaces. There are two general types of AI. There's narrow AI and there's also general AI. Narrow AI refers to an AI system for specific tasks and domains, while general AI aims to develop machines that possess human-level intelligence and can perform any intellectual task that a human can do. AI certainly raises important ethical, social, and legal considerations, including privacy, bias, transparency, and impact on employment and society as a whole. As the field continues to advance, ongoing discussions and responsible developments are crucial to ensure ethical and beneficial development of AI technologies. It's impossible to talk about artificial intelligence without thinking about some dystopian movies or dystopian future. What comes to mind is Terminator, where the Terminator initially the machines have decided that the problem is humans and not machines, and so the machines turn on the creators in order to destroy them. And this is a theme that's been just replicated many times. I've got a list of a few of the movies here. Terminator 2001, A Space Odyssey. The ship decides that it needs to kill the astronauts. You got iRobot. That was a great movie about robots taking over the world. Metropolis was I think a 1927 German film about machines taking over. You've got Matrix, RoboCop, Blade Runner, The Machine, Star Wars, a movie actually called AI, Artificial Intelligence, and Minority Report. And one almost common denominator is that Arnold Schwarzenegger is almost always one of the prominent actors in each of these, or lots of these movies. So will AI replace attorneys, judges, accountants, doctors? I don't think that's at risk anytime soon. Something that's rather interesting is there was a robot that was named Sophia, and it was granted citizenship by Saudi Arabia. And if you were to videotape Sophia, Saudi Arabia, and watch this robot, it's really amazing how the human facial responses are just incredible. And she's been interviewed on the Tonight Show. She's appeared at the UN, and it's very interesting and a little bit scary to watch. So after finishing your course here, certainly Google or look up on YouTube Sophia and Saudi Arabia robot, and you'll see some rather fascinating videos. So what is ChatGPT? Now I'll disclose that in preparing this course, I would ask ChatGPT many of the questions, and many of the responses are what it answered. So what does ChatGPT say about itself? It says ChatGPT refers to the specific version of the open AI language model that you are currently interacting with, and it is part of GPT, Generative Pre-trained Transformer series developed by OpenAI. GPT models are designed to generate human-like text based on provided input and context. ChatGPT signifies that this particular version of the model is optimized for interactive conversational experiences. So I asked the thing, apart from ChatGPT, what other artificial tools are available to the public? And some of these you should be aware of. There's a Google Assistant, Amazon Alexa. If you've had those in your house, that can be really great or kind of scary sometimes. So you ask it what time it is, it tells you. You ask it what the weather is, it gives you a response. You get even ask other questions, and it seems to provide some pretty good answers. There's Apple Siri, Microsoft Contera, IBM Watson. There are other ones that I'm probably less familiar with. OpenAI GPT-3, TensorFlow, which was developed by Google, Keras, which was written by Python, and there's also PyTorch, was developed by Facebook. So to open up an account on your laptop, use chat.openai.com, and you'll have to set up a user account, ask for an email address, and I believe it verifies that you are a human, which I think it's strange. The robot doesn't want robots asking it questions. I suppose that's so somebody can't just crash the system by, putting constant inquiries into it. When you sign up, you'll be given an option for a free account or one that costs you $20 per month. I have not seen any reason why a $20 a month subscription would be necessary unless you're just using it an incredible amount. So that might be the only reason you might use it that way. There's also an Apple app available for ChatGPT, but I've not been able to find one for Android. Once you get into ChatGPT, the website, you'll find this box or this information in the middle of the document. So it shows examples of types of queries or messages you can send, explain quantum computing in simple terms, or create ideas for a 10-year-old's birthday party, or how do you make a HTTP request in JavaScript. So it claims this allows you to do many things. Under capabilities, it says it remembers what users said earlier in the conversation. So I think this is important. It seems like it has a way to archive information that a individual has submitted. So obviously mitigates against including client's name, attorney-client confidential information, and so forth. It allows a user to provide follow-up corrections. I'll talk about that here in a second. And it also is trained to decline inappropriate requests. So I'm not sure what this would be or what examples of that would be, but it apparently has some type of ethical component built into it. It also talks about its limitations. It says may occasionally generate incorrect information. Boy, I've got a really big example of how that occurred in a litigation setting, and it caused a lot of problems for the attorney who did not recognize that. It says it may occasionally produce harmful instructions or biased content and has limited knowledge of the world events after 2021. Occasionally you'll receive messages that says its cutoff of information occurred September of 2021. When asked Chat about it, it says that it expects to have updates. So it's a good year and a half behind the rest of us. At the bottom of the page, you'll see a small box. I'm really not very happy with the graphics. They don't make it very easy to see, but it says send a message. Well, what does that mean? Well, send a message is if you want to get a response from ChatGPT, you can pose a question, ask it information, ask it to do something for you, and just kind of see what your results are. So of course you have sent a message and you click the arrow, and then that is submitted. And then almost instantaneously, it's pretty scary how quickly this happens. You'll start seeing, it looks like a human is typing on the other end, and it'll start providing answers or responses to whatever your request is. So I put a request asking what the capital for the capital of South Africa, and it provided information. It was Pretoria, but also gave some other information that there are 3 capital cities. And so it gave not just some very basic information, it gave a little more information than I would have found. Frankly, I probably could have found this about as easily using a Google or Bing search. Now, you'll see at the top right-hand corner, there's 3 little icons. Those look like a clipboard, a thumbs up, and a thumbs down. As you might expect, if you hit the clipboard, that is going to copy whatever the response was that the machine produced. So you can copy the entire contents simply by clicking the icon that looks like a little clipboard. You can also give a thumbs up to a response. I guess it means obviously you like it, and it says, what do you like about the response? So you would type something in why you like the response, and then of course the button that says submit feedback, you would click that. You can also give a thumbs down to the answer you got, and you can provide information. What was the issue with the response? How could it be improved? So if you saw a mistake in the response, you could certainly add that. You could also click that this was harmful and or unsafe. So the ChatGPT says that when you provide a thumbs down and response, it helps it learn and improve the performance over time. It's called reinforcement learning from human feedback. It's the term it uses to train the model, and user feedback plays a crucial role in this process. And I've done a few thumbs down, and then I've noticed when I've done a search at a future time that the wrong information was removed. So what's the difference between a chat GPT and a search engine response? Um, well, I put this question up there and I got a pretty good answer. A Google search, it searches for the internet for web pages that match the query that was put in to your Google search or your Bing search, whichever search engine you're using. But the Chat GPT uses a model, like a language model, so it gives you more of a conversational response. Doesn't provide you links to answers, but it tries to answer your question or provide the service, as it may be, to answer your query or your request. So that got me wondering, when I put something in that box to ask a question, um, does ChatGPT use the information presented in the message to learn information? And at least according to this response, it says no, it does. ChatGPT does not use specific information presented in a message to learn or update its knowledge. As a language model, it has been pre-trained on vast corpus of text from the internet, but does not have the ability to directly access or incorporate information from individual messages or conversations. The model's responses are generated based on patterns and knowledge that has learned during training, rather than any specific information provided in a particular interaction. So, so does it learn when you give it a thumbs down and you try to correct it? It doesn't seem like that is the case here. I would imagine that there is some type of feedback that it would receive. Okay, so that brings up the question, why should an attorney understand Chat GPT? Why should you be sitting here? Why should you listen to the remainder of this presentation? How does it impact you? Well, I asked the machine this very question, and the first thing it came up with was research and case preparation. It claims it can assist attorneys in conducting legal research and providing access to vast amounts of information and legal knowledge. It can help find relevant cases, statutes, regulations, and legal opinions, thereby enhancing the ability to prepare for cases effectively. Now, those are, in my book, are some pretty broad claims. If it was able to do this, many of us would be replaced. But I think you'll see in the following discussion that is not always very dependable, the information you get, and so it may provide some hints to some legal concepts or cases. I would not rely on this for myself. You'll find out in a big reason soon. It claims that it can help with document drafting and review. And of course, it states obviously attorneys spend a lot of time drafting and reviewing documents, and that Chat GPT can offer suggestions to help with language clarity and provide different perspectives on legal writing and improve the quality and efficiency of document preparation. And I will say that this is probably an area that is probably one of the biggest tools that you can find. I'll have examples a little later. What's nice is sometimes if you're kind of have the writer's block and you just really want to get started, it can give you some writing prompts, and it also tends to not make the type of grammatical and spelling errors that I just love to put into my documents. It also claims to assist with legal analysis and augmentation. It says language models like ChatGPT can assist attorneys in analyzing legal issues, identifying relevant precedents, formulating legal arguments. They can generate ideas and counter arguments and offer insights that may help strengthen help attorneys strengthen their legal reasoning. With regard to this, you might have an area of law that you are not familiar with, and you might want to put in a question like I asked, as an attorney, what issues might I face when drafting a prenuptial agreement? And it put a pretty good bullet points at about 7 things that I ought to be aware of when drafting that. And if someone's new to an area of law, that could be certainly helpful to get some insight along those things. Client communication. So it says that it can be used to improve communication with clients, leverage the models to explain legal concepts, interpret complex legal matters into more understandable terms. I'll have an example of this later. And provide general guidance to clients, and can enhance client satisfaction and ensure that clients have better understanding of legal matters. Then, of course, it put in continuing legal education, and learning about ChatGPT and other artificial intelligence tools can contribute to an attorney's professional development. It allows them to stay informed about technological advancements in the legal field and explore how these tools can be integrated into practice to improve efficiency and provide better legal services. I'll agree with this somewhat. I think it's important certainly stay up on technology. It's also it's important to know how you might be able to use it or how it might be used against you as well, and issues you may face from opponents that are using artificial intelligence. Sticking with the continuing legal education aspect, the attorney's professional responsibility requires you to stay abreast of changes and advancements in technology, which would include artificial intelligence. And the American Bar Association model rules for professional conduct say that attorneys should stay abreast of things that may impact their practice. More specifically, the ABA model rules for professional conduct discusses the client-lawyer relationship. Says an attorney shall provide competent representation, and maintaining competence. Comment 8 discusses the need to keep abreast of technology, its risks, and its benefits. Also, the Canadian Bar Association Code of Professional Conduct in Chapter 2 talks about competency and quality of service and discusses that an attorney should keep up with technology in areas that may be impacting his or her practice. So let's talk about some innocent uses of ChatGPT or artificial intelligence. So I asked it to provide a synopsis of the book Beowulf, and it provided about a 8 or 9 paragraph summary of the book. And having read the book, I would say that what it presented was a very good representation of that work. This may explain why ChatGPT is very popular with students, because it is a way for them to prepare a excellent book report on something they haven't read, which I think schools and universities are really trying to combat this to make sure that the kids are doing the work that they were actually given to do. They read the book and they write their own report. Another innocent use might be, let's say you're going to go to see a Shakespearean play and you're really not sure about the plot line, and you don't want to be lost. And so I found that having a synopsis of the plot line really aids my enjoyment of the play, because I don't get as lost, especially with the archaic language. So describe the plot of Shakespeare's As You Like It. It gave a really good synopsis. This could also be used for travel plans. If I'm going to Charleston, South Carolina, and want to find a place for a post-soccer game restaurant for 14-year-old boys, and I asked it, and so it suggested the hometown barbecue, and kind of describes what it offers. So, at any rate, that's a pretty good little trick there. It can also be used to create like poetry, like a haiku or some other poetry. I asked it to write a country and western song about an attorney who tries to teach other attorneys about ChatGPT. I'm not going to try to sing this. And I only included the first verse in the chorus because I think you'll get the point. In a dust-heeled courtroom where the lawmen gather round, there was a slick attorney, the talk of the town. He had a secret weapon never seen before, a digital sidekick called ChatGPT that he swore. Chorus. He's the attorney with a chat bot by his side, teaching lawyers far and wide, using AI to win their fights in the Wild West of legal rights. So, which of course brings up now, who has the copyright to this little ditty? I'm certainly not going to claim a copyright. Whether or not Chat GPT has it, I have it because of my query. That's another legal analysis that will have to be sorted out at some other time. So what type of queries or requests can Chat GPT handle? I've shown a few. There's also answering general knowledge questions, providing recommendations or advice on a topic, creating creative content such as poems, songs, stories, translating from one language to another, providing customer support and troubleshooting assistance, helping with personal tasks such as scheduling reminders, to-do lists, conducting web searches and providing relevant results, analyzing data and providing insights, performing calculations and conversions, providing news and weather updates. Okay, so how is ChatGPT being used by the courts? Well, that's a great question. There was a judge used ChatGPT in a Colombian court case with AI factoring into his decision. Uh, so this came out. So that's a little scary. The case involved a dispute with a health insurance company and whether or not an autistic child was eligible for treatment. The arguments for the decision will be determined in line with the use of artificial intelligence, the judge wrote in his official decision. So that to me is kind of scary, especially when I talk about the next few cases or the next case. There are a couple of cases that I'll talk about where attorneys use ChatGPT instead of traditional legal research. I guess the idea was they're going to power up their practice or be able to practice more efficiently. But these couple of cases went terribly wrong. Now this kind of goes to whether or not you should really rely heavily on ChatGPT for legal research. And I think this is going to answer the question to the negative. So there was a case where a passenger on an airline was suing because he was injured by a drink cart on the airline. The defendants filed a motion to dismiss, and the attorney filed a response and had citation of 6 cases. The trouble was the cases did not even exist. So the defendants filed a motion to dismiss the case, and the plaintiff's attorney filed a response that cited 6 cases. And when the defense attorney tried to look those up on Westlaw and LexisNexis and elsewhere, they could not find the cases whatsoever. The judge issued a order ordering the plaintiff's attorney who had submitted those authorities to provide an affidavit with copies of those actual cases. As you might imagine, the federal judge was nonplussed with the response, and so now the law firm and the attorney are now scrambling. And so, to their defense of why they did what they did, they provided excerpts of the ChatGPT queries where he actually asked Chat whether the case he cited was a real case, and Chat said it's a real case. It can be found in legal research databases such as Westlaw and LexisNexis. He even asked if the other cases were faked, and it said, no, the other cases I provided are real and can be found in reputable legal databases such as LexisNexis and Westlaw. This is not what I would call a thorough investigation or citation. There was a thing that was taught in law school called shepherdizing, named after the book, where you'd go find your case, look it up, and you'd look to see whether it was still good law. You can do similar things with Fast Case, LexisNexis, and Westlaw, where you can basically check your citation. And so not only did these cases not exist, but there was also a summary of what the cases stood for. And of course, it was all hogwash since there was no case in the first place. The law firm trying to do what they can to minimize the damage said that Mr. Schwartz did not, the attorney did not fully understand GPT. Mr. Schwartz had never used GPT for legal research. He knew the technology from his college-age children. And it goes on to say, oh, he's been hearing about artificial intelligence and how it's the upcoming thing, and it should make can make the legal research obsolete. So the hearing on the sanctions motion was June 8th, 2023. I'm recording this as of June 14th of that, about a week later, and the court had, as far as I know, has not reached a decision on whether to or in what form the sanctions may entail. So this is certainly a cautionary tale that you should not use a technology that you do not understand, no matter what that may involve. If you should know what the risks are. Certainly, I think it's rather a pedestrian activity to double check the cases to make sure that they actually exist, especially if you're receiving them from an unconventional source such as ChatGPT. So I certainly would not recommend cutting and pasting an answer or a response to a motion for motion to dismiss just using ChatGPT. It might work for an English lit class on occasion, but I don't think it's going to work when you have an adversary who's going to check everything you do. In a similar case, a Colorado Springs attorney filed pleadings that cited dozens of fake cases, and the attorney withdrew the pleadings and later said in a court filing that based on the accuracy of prior validated response, the apparent accuracy of the case law citations, it never dawned on me that the technology would be deceptive. So what has my experience been? Well, I asked Chat to provide relevant Arizona case law involving the effect of a divorce on a life insurance beneficiary designation. Now it gave me some. First of all, it says I apologize. I do not have access to legal databases or the ability to browse the internet. Additionally, my training only goes up until September 2021. I'm not sure what happened then. Maybe it got unplugged. It then went on to make some general statements of the law, but the interesting thing was it actually cited a case called State of Lopez versus Sandoval. And according to the answer, the case involved the beneficiary designation of a formal spouse on a life insurance policy is deemed revoked upon divorce, absent clear absence of the evidence of the insured's intent to maintain the former spouse as the beneficiary. Now, I don't really have a case involving that. I just thought it was a good query to see what we came up with. So I looked up the estate of Lopez versus Sandoval. I could find no such case in the state of Arizona. When I pulled up the Westlaw citation of 972 Pacific 2nd 149, I came up with a California criminal case. So it was not even a valid Arizona case whatsoever. And I could not find a case involving Lopez versus Sandoval in Arizona whatsoever. I asked another question, what is the statute of limitations in Alaska for slip and fall? So it says the statute of limitations in Alaska is typically 2 years. And so it also says you should visit with a qualified attorney to determine the applicable statute of limitations in your situation. So it's saying I'm not giving legal advice, which is fine. And then I asked it a second time, the same question, and then I said, please provide the statute and/or case law citation. This time it gave me a little bit more information. It did cite a Alaska statute, and lo and behold, this one was right. It did not have a hallucination. It didn't make up something, so it did have some accurate information on this round. I decided to try a third, more of an administrative type of question of what documents are needed to acquire a green card. And it provided me several forms that may be needed. I don't practice any immigration law, so it was probably a good starting point. At least it told me where the forms were, and when I looked these forms up, they appeared to be appropriate. So my takeaway is that GPT cannot be trusted to conduct any case law research. Given the two cases where attorneys filed pleadings with non-existent cases, and the example I had of it, GPT spitting out a completely bogus case, I just don't see how anyone would even begin to use this for case law research. Uh, there was a better response when I asked about a statute regarding a statute of limitations in Alaska. It seemed to have provided a good answer for that. Also, it did seem to provide a reasonable answer with regard to what you need to obtain a green card. However, given these huge fails that left attorneys very exposed to sanctions from the court and discipline, I would say that ChatGPT receives about a D minus on its ability to do legal research. In the movie Dodgeball, the movie, there was a scene when the coach, by the name of Patches O'Houlihan, tells the team players, "You're about as useful as a poopy flavored lollipop." And that's about how I feel about ChatGPT and its ability to do legal research at this point. Now, thankfully, I really didn't need to know the answer to that question. I was using that for preparation of this CLE. So I really did not need to know the case law, and I certainly did not cite it, but I would have much rather if ChatGPT were to say, I don't know. I would have much rather have that type of answer rather than some computer, some robot trying to BS me that it knows what it's talking about. And I just don't understand how it could make up items like this, and it's been referred to as ChatGPT hallucinations. And I'll talk about that here in the next couple slides. So Forbes has an article about how OpenAI, the company that has set up ChatGPT was being sued for defamation after it generated fake information of a man accused of embezzlement. A reporter who was doing some investigation um, put in an individual's name who happened to be a talk show host in Georgia. And the answer it got back was that this person um, had embezzled from an organization, and he was facing some type of crimes or federal charges, or a lot of bad stuff was said about him. It turns out the person was not even a member of the organization um, from which the embezzlement purportedly occurred. He had no connection to it. And so he's suing ChatGPT for defamation. I have also experienced this myself. Several weeks back, I put in, "Who is attorney Richard Winblad?" That's myself. It says Richard Winblad is an attorney based in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Pretty close. I'm in Edmond, a suburb, with a practice focused on oil and gas and mineral law, as well as state planning and probate. That's pretty accurate so far. Just graduated University of Oklahoma College of Law. Got that one. Has been practicing for over 40 years. Not quite that long. It missed that by about 10 years. And extensive experience in a range of legal matters, including oil and gas law, including representing clients in drilling. I have not represented any client in drilling. Lease negotiations, I've done a little bit of that, certainly. Acquisitions, no, haven't really been involved in that whatsoever. In addition to his legal practice, he's also involved in various professional and community organizations. Well, that's true. He served as a member of the board of directors of the Oklahoma City Mineral Lawyers Society. I've never heard of that society. I don't believe that one even exists. And he is a former president of the Oklahoma City Estate Planning Council. Never heard of that organization. I don't think it exists. Member of the Oklahoma Bar Association, that's true. American Bar Association, I've been a member of that in the past. The American Association of Petroleum Landmen, I've never heard of that organization. I don't know if it exists. I'm certainly not a member. A few weeks later, I asked it the identical question, "Who is the attorney Richard Winblad?" Now I get a completely different answer. I apologize, but I cannot find any specific information about an attorney named Richard Winblad. That would allow me to provide accurate details or context. So it suggests I might check other places to find out about me, but now it's taken away everything I had, including the things I didn't have. Any rate, that was kind of an interesting turnabout. I did do one of those thumbs down and told them that they were wrong about me whenever I saw that information previously, so perhaps it learned from that previous response. What about drafting legal documents? Well, I asked it to draft a quitclaim deed. Now, I've done this twice. I did one several weeks ago, and it generated a quitclaim deed, but it had a very strange feature in it. It also had a warranty of title, which in Oklahoma, if you're doing a quitclaim deed, you are not warranting title at all. So I gave it a thumbs down and said, in a quitclaim deed, you do not warrant title. And a more recent, so I put the request in again, and I got basically what was a fairly appropriate quitclaim deed. But imagine that I'm not an attorney, and I asked to draft a quitclaim deed. There's certainly a disclaimer at the top that says it should be you should consult a licensed attorney to prepare one, and this is not a substitute for legal advice. So that first one that was actually a warranty deed when they meant to do a quitclaim deed, if some poor individual, copied that, printed it off, they would have gotten something they did not actually intend to get. So I think ChatGPT can be very dangerous for people trying to use these. One of the most useful tools I see ChatGPT is for drafting. And this is particularly important if you have already know what the kind of the legal issues are, and you want to have a document prepared, and it can give you at least a good starting prompt to get you rolling. So in this example, I asked to create a syllogism. Write a syllogism legal arguments as follows, and I gave it some parameters. Of course, a syllogism is a logical, premise one, premise two, conclusion, and therefore. And so it gave me a pretty well worded writing prompt that needed to be certainly edited, but it at least got me going down the road. And so that maybe one of the most useful things for this is to use it as a tool for maybe a writer's block, or at least to maybe organize some thoughts around some issues. Again, let me stress that this example here, if I have the points of law that I want to make and I've researched them independently, and I just want some help with getting the thoughts out of my head and onto paper, this can serve a role in that regard. Another example of how you might use this for drafting is, suppose you want to draft an email or a letter terminating an employee. So I said draft an email terminating an employee after exposing himself during a Christmas party. Now this isn't something that happened, at least not in the organization I've been with, but I just wanted to see what it would say. And it actually provided a pretty good template to work off of. It included details that actually didn't exist, but might have existed, but it was pretty well organized. Certainly the grammar is correct, the tone was correct, and it made for a good writing prompt that would just require some polishing up to get it in a form that makes sense. Yet another example, write an email to a former guardian inquiring whether he had any objection to a law firm assisting a transaction with a former ward, waiver of conflict of interest. Again, it did not quite nail the email perfectly, but it provided something that made it very easy to work with. It was at the end of the day I needed to get this out. I didn't just copy and paste it, obviously, but it really cut down the amount of time needed to prepare this document. Another great example is using ChatGPT to explain a difficult legal concept to a layman. And so I asked it to explain why there's a rule against perpetuity. Someone says, I want to keep this property in the family forever. And they're not understanding the concept. And so I put, please write a draft something for a layman explaining why a trust is subject to the rule against perpetuities. And it's about 5-6 paragraph response, and that is a pretty fair statement of what the law is. So it can be useful if you're just having a mental block of how am I going to explain this, or I really need to draft this letter, and I've got this client that's going to ask and ask and ask. This might be a good tool in those situations. Okay, so what are the risks of including personal identifying data in a GPT query? GPT itself says it does present risk. Says artificial intelligence is the models analyze and respond to natural language queries, but it's not designed to handle sensitive or confidential information. So personal identifying data is included in the query. Is a risk it could be stored, shared, or exposed inappropriately. It's important to be cautious when sharing personal information to ensure that any data shared with GPT is not sensitive or confidential in nature. So you certainly don't want to include clients' names, addresses, phone numbers, social security numbers, dates of birth, email addresses, those type of things into a chat GPT inquiry because it says it cannot guarantee that it won't be somehow leaked from its system. So you may say, draft an email to my client telling him he needs to show up on these days with these documents in a generic form, and then once you get the information in, you can go in and add the data. So let's talk about another ethical issue, preserving client confidentiality while using GPT. I asked the machine and it actually provided some pretty good answers. So it obviously said avoid sharing specific client names or identifiable information. You would want to do that just about on any place. Imagine if you were going to post something on the message board where other attorneys might chime in with some tips or legal advice. You certainly wouldn't say, my client Joe Doe, murdered someone. I need the best, defense possible. You wouldn't do that. You would use generic terms. You would also want to describe the scenario in generic ways, hypothetical scenarios, so that you're not giving away details about your specific case, which also goes along with generalizing the facts, so that you're not, providing something that really makes it clear that you're not exposing the facts that someone could say, oh, I know what case that is. Be cautious with document sharing. It makes sense. So supposedly ChatGPT does not store this information anywhere, but if someone can get into your computer or through Wi-Fi and you've uploaded something in that chat box, could it be visible to others? I suppose it's possible. Now, ChatGPT does not claim that it keeps those documents, but I would not really trust any web provider that says, oh, you can send us a picture, we won't keep it. Or a document. I just wouldn't trust anybody with that type of information. Use secure communication channels. Certainly you want to make sure you're not on a public Wi-Fi. Conduct risk assessments. I don't know what that would be. Probably making sure that the information is protected. Does not get out any other way, kind of with your other cloud information. Follow any professional guidelines or regulations. Obviously, if there are certain rules in your jurisdiction regarding this, you certainly want to follow that, and educate staff and colleagues, and I would say clients as well. Encourage them to follow the best practices and not put things out where others can receive them. So what are the pros and cons of ChatGPT in a legal setting? It can be used in legal research. We saw from the from the case above that you certainly don't want to just cut and paste and trust that everything that ChatGPT says is true. It produces some weird stuff on occasion. It can be, so you want to just make sure that if it tells you that there's a case, that you look up the case, put your eyeballs on it, make sure that's a case, and the case says what Chat says it is. So it doesn't replace you as the attorney. So the Chat GPT can be a really good tool for legal topics or ideas. So if you've not done a prenuptial agreement before, you might ask it, what do I need to consider when preparing a prenuptial agreement for my client? So it can give you some things, and you probably thought of them. Maybe a few you haven't. It can be a great aid for drafting letters, briefs, and emails.